And we are live. Let's hit the theme song. And I forgot to stream it to you guys. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I have the stream on YouTube.
Audio library. There we go.
That's what I normally do too.
All right. With that, hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Late Night Serotonin. I am your host, Lady Avalon. I am a transgender, lesbian, socialist, polyamorous, disabled, atheist, and I'm a ginger. Today's episode is going to be on the election results. We've kept the Senate, but democracy is still up in the air. We're going to be talking with my guests, who I will give now a chance to introduce themselves. Astro, take it away.
Hey guys, I'm Astrofeminist. I typically make content on TikTok, and it's pretty much just me discussing my experiences as a woman living under a patriarchy. And if that's the kind of content that you're interested in, then go check it out.
All right. Sweetie Python, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am a variety streamer on Twitch, as well as chronic shitposter and discourse engager on TikTok. Yeah, you can find me anywhere. Just search my username.
All right, lovely. So, big topic of the night, the election results. Huge thing to note is that Gen Z showed up for this election. Not only have we won the Senate, and we've got Fetterman in Pennsylvania who beat Amendment Oz, but a lot of Trump's hand-picked candidates lost or performed incredibly poorly all across the board, to the point where it's actually starting to cause a bit of a schism in the Republican Party, as they no longer think Donald Trump might be the kingmaker that he postured himself to be. There's also growing fractures between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, as Donald Trump proves that he will go after even his own party and cannibalize it for his own narcissistic glee, which is entirely to our benefit. And again, to restate, Gen Z showed up in huge numbers. To give the example that I've been going to, Lauren Boebert was supposed to win her deeply red district in a 97-3 landslide. But instead, she's currently locked in a dead heat with less than half a percentage point between her and her Democratic opponent, Adam Fish. It is a tight race, and it is almost certainly going to cause, I think, what is their thing called? A runoff or a recount? Because it is so close. It is so tight. And the last few counties that are left to be counted, still up in the air. Could go either way at this point. But with that, it seems like with the 19 House races that are still uncalled, the House, it looked like it could be or Republican leaning, but even if they do get that win, it looks like it's going to be a razor thin margin, which would then empower the more traditionally conservative Republicans to jockey against the MAGA Republicans that are of the newer bunch. So, with my opening monologue sort of out of the way, I turn it over to my guests. What are your thoughts, reactions, comments?
I'm really proud of Gen Z for showing up how they did, and I think it was to be expected. They definitely have a huge presence in the social limelight, especially on social media, and they've kind of made it known, like, hey, we're coming out, and they lived up to their word. So I thought that was really cool, and I think that we're going to be seeing some really good things from Gen Z in the next several years.
I think it's also really interesting, too, how, like, people have been saying this recently, but especially with elections, it's just showing how completely irrelevant polls tend to be, especially nowadays, when the people who are actually responding to polls aren't necessarily the people who are showing up to elections. Mm-hmm. And there's been some very funny meme content on the internet about that lately. Which also helps for like dispelling a bit of pre-election anxiety due to really horrible looking polls. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see that trend continue, because nothing should be deciding over your attitude towards the country other than the election results. Like, polls is just an unnecessary thing that makes everybody stressed and they don't work. And so it's nice to see them again not coinciding with election results. Because polls tend to be a lot more red in general than results, which is always horrifying. And you're always like, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. And then you see the results of the election, you're like, oh, okay, we're not that bad. So we're actually pretty good sometimes.
So speaking of trends continuing, once again, the Republicans have encountered a demographic that does not vote for them. So their immediate response is to stop that demographic from voting. And we have seen calls from various Republican figureheads to raise the voting age to 21.
Oh, because of Gen Z, huh?
Yeah. Immediately after those results came out, suddenly they're all singing, hey, maybe we should restrict the voting age. You know, maybe I saw discussions like in this poll, it was like unmarried women voted for Democrats like 80%, 84% of the time. And so suddenly Republicans start talking about how we need to get more young women married. And it's like, hey, folks.
Love that.
Instead of trying...
Hey Siri, play Teenagers by My Chemical Romance.
Exactly. To quote modern philosopher Gerard Way, teenagers scare the living shit out of Republicans.
I think that's a misquote.
Maybe a little.
Can confirm.
With that, let's talk impact. What do we think the impact of this will be? What do we think? Now we've got Gen Z who have shown up in a big way. So are we going to expect to see Democrats start to lean on that demographic a little bit more, expect their vote a little bit more, maybe start listening to some of their key issues a little bit more? Abortion was top of the round. And, I'll go ahead and say Bernie Sanders was actually, I think, wrong on this one. Bernie Sanders, before the midterms, was saying that we need to not talk about abortion, but we need to champion the economy. And while, Bernie Sanders is obviously rock solid on the abortion issue, he was saying we need to focus more on the economy. When in fact, exit polls show that people cared extremely about abortion. That was one of the number one issues across the board. And while Republicans were trying before the election to play that down as much as possible and say, no, people actually care about inflation, stuff like that. I saw a really great comment, and I can't remember where I saw it, or I would credit it. People said, people were saying, oh, don't care about abortion, care about the economy. And the response to that was, well, what do you think having a kid does to you economically? That is yes. Absolutely an economic decision right there,
and that also goes back to the relevancy of polls and opinion polls, because the people responding to the polls are a bunch of boomers who don't give a shit about abortion. But when the general populace gives very much of a shit about abortion, and that shows in the way that people voted. I personally, most of the people I know who don't vote very often, who did show up for this most recent vote, it was because of the abortion issue. And I think that has a lot to do with the rising number of Gen Z voters as well.
Yeah. And, then we've got specific races. Were either of you following the Fetterman Oz race at all? I tuned in.
No, did us.
Kind of. I saw a bunch of TikToks on it.
I tuned into it. Fetterman made an effort both to reach out to young people and across the board. And of the two of them, he was the only one with with political experience. He had been a mayor and city councilman a couple of times. And then he was running for senator. Mehmet Oz, however, was a TV personality known for being a snake oil salesman. What had me really worried... Yeah, what had me really worried, though, is... Fetterman had a stroke recently, and it showed in his debate with Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is
Like speaking
obviously
difficulty or
for
speaking difficulty.
for all of Dr. Oz's faults, being a charismatic TV personality is not one of them.
Wait, Dr. Oz? Like
Yeah.
the Dr.
Yeah.
Oz?
Like the Dr.
Yeah.
Oz was running for the Senate.
No!
I just made that
What?
realization too. I thought it was a different Oz.
Yeah,
I didn't. I've never seen
Dr.
pictures.
Mehmet Oz from
He's
TV.
losing, right?
He lost.
Thank God. Send him to the ranch. Fucking hate that man.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah, no.
he needs to be
The puppy
tried for
guy.
his crimes
No, he moved
against
to
young
Pennsylvania.
at-risk youth.
He moved to Pennsylvania to run in that race, and he still lost.
Opportunist much?
A little bit.
Fuck Dr. Oz. I'm always saying he's a piece of shit. I'm glad he lost.
I haven't liked him for years because of his snake oil salesman
Actual doctor?
tactics.
Like, does he have a PhD?
I think he had a doctorate. He was a doctor. Although he's been widely discredited by many of his colleagues for the things that
I wouldn't
he
be surprised
sells
if
and
he's
promotes.
had his doctorate like revoked. But
Maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I'm happy for Fetterman. I wish him a speedy recovery as well.
Oh yeah, he seems to be recovering just fine. And his doctor gave him a clean bill of health. The thing is, though, when people when they were asked in exit polls, what was the biggest deciding factor for you? And it's like, well, honesty, integrity. You know, Oz comes off as a snake oil salesman trying to sell me something or sell me for something. Whereas Fetterman is this like 6'20" dude who's just this hulking beast who's like, yeah, so I think healthcare is fine. I think your rights are fine. And I'm going to work to protect that. And sure, he's a little bit nervous in front of a camera, but dude is so good at earning support that one of the big things that was used against him in his race is that back in 2013, Fetterman had been mayor of the town right after Sandy Hook, and he heard some gunshots. He got his 4-year-old son inside, ran outside and saw a jogger running past during the winter in full like snow gear. Grabbed his shotgun, jumped in his truck, chased that guy down, held the guy at gunpoint until the police arrived. That man was a black man. Mehmet Oz tries to use that as a slight against him, saying, oh, it was racist. Do you want to know who endorsed Fetterman 3 separate times? The guy who was held at gunpoint.
So that's water under the bridge for them. Like they're over it. They're buddies now.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, endorsed him. He's like, I hope Fetterman wins. Fetterman for Senate, underlined 3 times in his letter sent to the newspaper that reported on it. Wild. I was reading the article and I'm like, wow, damn, seems like Fetterman really made a huge mistake. And then I get to the bottom, I'm like, well, apparently not that big. Holy shit.
Also, something that shouldn't be overlooked is Dr. Oz is one of the people. Not only did he promote like shitty weight loss scams back in the 2000s, but he during COVID was one of the people pushing hydroxychloroquine on the Fox News.
Oh,
and like that's dangerous.
Which we can
That's
kind of see
not
now with
safe.
him leading up. He keeping his name in the news before his Senate run. Where he then moved to a different state to then run for Senate. Which, I don't know. Listen, everyone can move and go to anywhere they want in the entire United States, but it always feels real scummy when some out-of-state multimillionaire travels to your state to run and pretends to give a shit about you. Like, that always reads as inauthentic, you know? People who run for one state Senate should be from that state, you know? It's one of the reasons why I will never leave my home state. I am going to dig in here at a Republican stronghold, and I'm going to run eventually. And I'm going to fight to make my home better because it is where I live. It is my people.
That's very commendable.
It is. Florida, I think it was Florida. They just elected the first Gen Z into the House.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting and really exciting.
He's a hero. 25 years old and kicking
in the
ass.
House.
He was
I'm
he was the Democratic Party's like organizing chairman, something like that. And he wasn't happy with the candidates that were being run in his district. So he's like, "Well, I'm going to run," and he did. And people would question him,
Slay.
saying, "Hey, what do you say to people who say that you don't have enough experience?" And he had an answer that I found really inspiring. He looked the camera right in the eye and he said, "Listen, we don't have the time to gain experience. That has been burned away by the Republicans, by the boomers. We have to jump in right now and start fixing the problems because the people in power who should be doing that aren't. So we have to step up. We don't have time to gain 1,000 years of experience going through their process and playing their game. We have to get in, play our game, play by our rules, and fix the problems before we all die, before climate change overtakes us, and our country dissolves into fascism. So it's either ride or die right now, or we give up and we lose, and everyone pays the price."
Best way to learn is by doing anyway.
Yeah, and it's not like the guy was like some schmuck off the street. Like this was an active,
Yeah.
DNC organizer.
Yeah.
He had experience, just not necessarily like in office, which
Yeah.
I feel like DNC organizing would be a great way to prep you for being in office anyway. Like you got the bureaucracy down pat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he'll do a great job, honestly.
And then,
Yeah.
we saw like a lot of the other standard wins. AOC handedly carried her entire state. But I saw some interesting discourse about AOC, which is that she keeps a
Tea?
no, all good stuff. She keeps organizing staff year round, and she, like, even though she's extremely popular in her own district and nationally, she still will go out and knock on doors in her own district with her team to do actual campaigning every single election cycle, which is,
What?
a sign we don't see enough from some both Republicans and Democrats who think, I've got this, I don't need to put in the work. She puts in the work every single time to convince her people to vote for her. And I think that's commendable.
Hell yeah. Love to see people not just resting on their laurels.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
It's also like really important. We saw this in the Fetterman fights. We've seen this with Bernie Sanders' presidential runs. The key difference between the old guard and the new guard is where and who they organize with. A lot of the old guard, they'll just organize with old rich people and they'll vote for their interests. And they kind of get corrupted that way. But
Mhm.
a lot of the new guard will organize, like, knock on doors instead of doing huge TV ads. They'll knock on people's doors and they'll hand them a pamphlet, they'll talk with them, and they'll get their feedback.
Much more community focused, more
Yeah.
grassroots type
More
organizing,
grassroots,
which
more
works
community.
better.
Yeah, which has a so much greater impact because it gets people to vote for you much more reliably. Sure, TV ads will get you your name out there for people who watch TV, but if you're knocking on people's doors, you're actually talking to them.
An ever shrinking number.
Yeah, an
of
ever
people.
shrinking number of people. So that's really great to see. Let's talk. So we've talked impacts. We've talked some of the states. We've talked about some of the demographics. Predictions. How do we think the House and Senate? We know the Senate is Democrat. It's up in the air whether or not Warnock will re-win election in the runoff. Once again, he already beat the last runoff in the last election cycle. Do we think the House will swing Democrat? That is what some analysts are saying now with the surge of Gen Z voters. Or are we going to see it in the hands of the Republicans? And if so, are we going to see a further splintering between Donald Trump's MAGA base and the sort of more traditional Republicans like Mitch McConnell, who are happy to ride the Trump wave as long as it's there, but as soon as it's not, they'll drop him like a hot skillet and move on to the next one? Thoughts from the panel?
Where's that right now? Is it still like a pretty 50-50 split?
Currently, it is leaning Republican, but it is still up in the air. There's 19 races undecided.
56
How-
well, I guess 57% Republican, 42% to or I'm sorry, no, it's not. My
Oh
bad.
yeah,
That was the
so
wrong
we got
thing.
203 for Democrats, we got 212 for Republicans, and they need 218
And
for a majority.
which states are undecided so far?
What states are undecided?
Because that's a big thing.
There was like how do I find that out? Oh, we've got Arizona, California, or certain sections of California, and Georgia and Nevada. 90.
Interesting.
Oh, no. Nevada is basically called. That's 99% reporting. That's midterm.
Okay, you want me to look into it?
Yeah, I'm looking into it right now. But yeah, other than that, it's a tight race. It looks like it might be 19 races remain to be decided for control. Huh. Alaska debuted the new ranked choice voting system for general elections this year. Results reported so far only reflect voters' first place choices. No candidates gets the majority of the first choices. The winner is determined by ranked choice progress. The tabulation is scheduled for November 23rd, which is, overwhelmingly the Democrat is winning here. Patola looks like they're going to re-win their seat. There is 47.3% for Patola, and Sarah Palin is at 26%. Beck is at 24%, and a Libertarian candidate is at 1.7%. So looks like Alaska is still undecided, but it looks like Alaska is going to go Democrat. Republican stronghold Alaska is, but looks like it's going Democrat for the first time in decades. So
yeah,
good for Alaska.
In less positive news, we have a good handful of election deniers on the Republican side that did get elected, especially in Georgia and Arizona, which do better, please.
Yeah.
I know progress only happens so quickly, but come on. It's embarrassing. Whoever voted for Marjorie Taylor Greene, why?
Don't say her
Leave
name.
us a comment explaining exactly why.
Not be named.
Yeah. Looks like Arizona is, it's a 50-50 split in the 1st House District and the 6th House District. But
I have a feeling Arizona is going to turn red.
Yeah, both of those are leaning red, looks like. At 50.4% for the Democrat in House District 1 and 50.5% for the House District 6. So 99% reporting, 99% reporting. Well, shite. Looks like that's going to tip the scales. But still,
it'd be interesting if we saw an exact 50-50 split for the House.
Yeah. Has
that happened anytime recently?
That is actually what some people are worrying will happen, because here's the thing. The Speaker of the House is dictated on total votes, and it does not have a tiebreaker split like the Senate does. So when the Senate is in a tiebreaker split, like 50-50, the vice president tips the scales. But the House doesn't have that. So the House will literally be in a deadlock if it's a 50-50 split.
Well, not necessarily, because people don't always vote along party lines for specific issues.
Well, so
they might still get stuff done.
Some people retire, some people die, and some people just won't show up. So it depends on who shows up more often, and who doesn't die more often might determine the House, which would be
okay. So the House is a place to watch right now.
Yeah. So the House is close, but it looks like the Republicans might get a slim majority. So then with the final topic, let's talk Donald Trump and Ron DeSanctimonious. Have you all been following that? Trump has started...
Ron DeSanctimonious?
Yeah, that is Trump's latest slang against Ron DeSantis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Ron DeSantis is currently doing good, and people are blaming Trump for the poor performance of all of his candidates in the midterms, he has started lashing out at the next strongest Republican in the party, which is Ron DeSantis.
Isn't there like isn't Ron DeSantis like trying to run in 2024? Like is that probably why he's kind of having hostility towards him? Because
People,
I think
Republicans want
the
him
Republican
to run,
primaries,
but he is very tactfully not saying anything on that subject. He is not doing anything to provoke Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is seemingly provoked by the possibility.
yeah.
I'll say this, though.
Which very smart for DeSantis.
Yeah,
like, that's
no.
a good move, honestly.
Yeah, that's the terrifying thing, is Ron DeSantis is all of Trump's worst aspects, or, well, best aspects from the Republican perspective. But he's smarter than Trump. He doesn't have the same issues that Trump does. He doesn't have the incompetence that held Trump back from being as damaging as he could or as successful as he could. Ron DeSantis is, in my opinion, far, far more dangerous than Trump because he's got all of Trump's worst political positions, but he's got the wits to actually carry through with them.
Like, what are his political positions?
His political positions are thus. He signed into law the Don't Say Gay bill. He's also made it illegal for any transgender person to receive medical care or for research to be done into transgender medical care for anyone under the age of 19. And he has also passed bills called anti-CRT bills, which ban the teaching of like anything to do with race in Florida schools. He has crushed teachers' unions in the areas. Basically, every single worst Republican position that you've heard over the past 6 to 10 years, Ron DeSantis has been championing nonstop. He has positioned himself as the next Trump.
Gross.
Oh, yeah. Also,
and yeah, he's a lot more marketable as well.
Yeah, there was also that Martha's Vineyard thing where he literally...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he lied to a bunch of immigrants saying that they were going to get food, housing, shelter, and jobs. And instead, he just dumped them. He told them they were going to Boston, and they found out mid-flight they were actually going to Martha's Vineyard. And he didn't tell anyone at Martha's Vineyard. He just sort of dumped them there. And he is now currently dealing with multiple lawsuits for human trafficking and wrongful appropriation of government funds and a deluge of other things. Because, yeah, performative cruelty is kind of his entire platform. It's the
he also has the same weird, like, uncanny, like, unsettling fake smile that Homelander from The Boys has, which is completely unrelated to his politics, but it's like the same face.
Vibes.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same vibe, which is just unsettling.
Kind of like Homelander. He does. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We understand that Ron DeSanctimonious is more dangerous than Trump. Trump also seems to understand this. Do we think is Ron going to make the bid for 2024? And are they
Trump
going
accidentally saying something correct?
Cannibalize each other in the primaries, or is Ron going to play the long game and wait till 2026? Or, sorry, no, math. 2028. And wait until after Trump has...
And just skip the whole Trump thing?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's going to be 2 more years, and Trump might be burning himself out at that point. He performed poorly in the midterms, so Ron's got 2 years to slowly leech Donald Trump's popularity away from him. So... where do we think that's going to end up?
The Republicans need a they need a big name, and I don't think Trump has what it takes to run again. But I think a good question would be who, if not DeSantis, who would it be? Because I don't know if I think Trump would run. I don't there's so much controversy surrounding him that he lost his second election. So who else would it possibly be?
Greg Abbott.
Oh yeah.
Greg Abbott is the next. Him and Ron DeSantis were for a while there probably still are in competition to be the next Trump by being governors of very Republican states and, signing into law or doing everything they could to be as performatively cruel as possible to court Trump's base. But Ron DeSantis was the one who played that game a little bit better and rose in the ranks. Although Greg Abbott is still a strong name in that lineup.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried, a little tangentially related, but I am worried about DeSantis gaining more like trustworthiness, sort of the idea of enemy of my enemy is a friend, because of Trump's aggressive coming after him. I'm worried that that's going to gain him more legitimacy in the people that view Trump as a crazy person.
Yeah. Both among Republicans and Democrats, because unfortunately, and I've been saying this for a while, but like liberals didn't seem to understand the problem with Trump. They seem to think that Trump was like, he was bad because he's crass. And like, yes, he's crass. He's loud, he's annoying, he's entitled, he's narcissistic. He's all of these, personally aggravating personality traits. Sure. But that doesn't matter. His politics matters. And that it was the dangerous part. And he was supported in his politics every step of the way by the majority of the Republican Party. And when there was a break from that, when we saw Liz Cheney actually try and hold him account, she lost her primary. She got beaten, overwhelmingly so. She was a Cheney. She was basically Republican royalty. And that wasn't enough to stop her from being crushed by MAGA Republicans. So, Trump champions this idea that if you step out of line for me even a little bit, I will go after you 100%. I will crush and destroy you. And that's basically his MO. And Republicans and Democrats both don't like him for that personality trait. But what makes him dangerous is how hateful he is to minorities, to queer people, to brown people, to native people, and generally how corrupt and how terrible he is for the entire administration as he slowly melts down the functions. Ron DeSantis has all of those same political impulses, but he's a lot smarter about it, so he knows how to calculate court that base while still maintaining a healthy relationship with the more traditional Republicans. That makes him more...
He knows when to dial it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that he won't be opposed as much by liberals because he's less annoying than Trump is. Now,
that's what I'm worried about too.
Thankfully, the Martha's Vineyard thing indicates that actually he is willing to do incredibly stupid and cruel things that can hurt him with liberals. Because the whole Martha's Vineyard thing, perfect storm for a liberal, You give liberals the opportunity...
That's assuming that they've done their research on the incident, though.
That's true, but Martha's Vineyard was a massive incident because it was like a perfect storm of Republicans being cruel towards those poor brown people, and then liberals got to be, performatively charitable, but not actually work to fix the overall systemic problem that is our border issues, to be more humanitarian. So that actually indicates to me that there is a flaw, a crack, that there is an overwillingness in Ron DeSantis to court Trump's base, that he overcorrects, and he might actually start to genuinely piss off and alienate the liberals and even some of the more reasonable Republicans, though I think they will just be quieter in their support of him. I don't think he'd actually lose any Republican support at this point. After Trump, I think everyone's signed onto the ship or they've left. I don't think the Republican ship is losing any more politicians, though I do think they are steadily losing voters. You can only
Love to see it.
Yeah, you can only make an enemy of so many voting bases before you become unpopular everywhere all the time.
Very true.
So, With that, speaking to looming threats of our democracy, Astro, you wanted to talk about Moore v. Harper.
Yes, this is going to be a pretty significant case that's going to be heard by the Supreme Court. Basically, it's regarding how congressional districts are drawn, essentially how elections are done within a jurisdiction, and basically, if this is overturned, this precedence protects like how elections are done, how they're conducted, and if this is overturned, then pretty much states can just do elections and however they see fit, and electors can vote not necessarily in the will of the people. So I think this is a really important case, especially given how we were talking earlier about, how the Republicans are trying to change the voting age, how this can kind of play into that, how they're trying to manipulate elections to their favor. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually talked about this court case on my channel before. It's actually the trailer to my entire channel now. It's titled "We May Lose Our Democracy in a Couple of Months." And Moore v. Harper, the thing that kicked it off is, it's been a few months. It's, I think, South Dakota or South Carolina. It was a South something. They had redrawn their district maps. The state legislatures had gerrymandered their district maps to cut the black vote population in half. And that was obviously sued and taken to the state Supreme Court. And the state Supreme Court said, that's unconstitutional. You're infringing on the right to vote. You have to redraw those maps more fairly. And then the legislature, the Republicans, countersued and said, fuck you, that doesn't matter. We should be able to do it anyways. And took it all the way to the Supreme Court, which is now a radical conservative supermajority. And their argument is basically, listen, we know it's racist. We know it's unfair. We know it's gerrymandered all to hell. Fuck you, I don't care. We should be able to do it anyways.
That's politics, baby.
That's politics. So
also, to correct that, it's in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
For those who want to look it up yourself.
Well, it wasn't even in the South at all. North Carolina.
It's South Carolina, so one of the Carolinas. So.
One of the Carolinas. Anyways, this is the independent state legislature's argument, where state legislatures with no checks and no balances should be able to do whatever they want, regardless of how flagrantly unfair or racist it may be. They should be able to do it anyways. This is so concerning because then it would allow mostly Republican-held legislatures, because of the way our states are set up. More power is not concentrated in the power of the votes, but electoral colleges. State legislatures would be able to decide, screw you, your vote doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to us at all. Instead, we are independently going to elect our electors to send only Republican legislatures to the Senate, to the House, to the presidency whenever we want. And that would just continue on. And you wouldn't be able to stop them. You wouldn't be able to sue and say, hey, your maps are unconstitutional, your actions are unconstitutional. They would say, doesn't matter, screw you. We have the power and you don't, so neener neener.
I think it's also really funny that they, like, the goal of, this whole thing is to give the state constitutional, they give the states the right basically to describe whatever rules they deem appropriate. And this is quoting the text directly. Whatever deems appropriate to ensure a fair and free election.
Mm-hmm.
And also disregarding the actual votes.
It's so hypocritical.
Yeah.
So, it's the exact opposite.
So like Astra said, this leads directly from, we talked about earlier about how if the Republicans encounter a demographic that doesn't vote for them, instead of trying to earn that demographic's vote, they instead try and stop that demographic from voting. Be that gerrymandering and cutting the votes in half, or if it's raising the voting age to stop young people from voting against them. Over and over, the Republicans don't want to engage in democracy. They want to stifle democracy so that they can stay in power, because the Republicans are anti-democratic. And this is why I say, and I got a whole video taken down for this, I think that the Republicans should be charged with sedition. Any of them that supported January 6th, any of them that continue their election denying lies, or any of them that voted against certifying the election results. I'm not talking one, I'm not talking 2, 3, 4, or 5, not a dozen, not 2 dozen. I'm talking
All of
by
them.
the hundreds.
Anybody found guilty.
By the hundreds, root and stem to the foundations. Take them out, jail them. If they are anti-democratic, they do not get to...
We'll try them first.
Try them first, obviously. But given how flagrantly they commit crimes, that's not a hard thing to prove. You just have to actually do it.
It's incredible the amount of people who still feel comfortable being in office and claiming that the election that Donald Trump lost was a fake, like that it wasn't democratic.
Yeah.
It's insane that is allowed.
Some of them got elected during that election, and they say that election was fraudulent, except for the part where they got elected.
Give up your seat. If it was so fraudulent, then step down.
Yeah. So
put your money where your mouth is, buddy.
Thank you.
So let's wrap up, because it's going to be a shorter show tonight. We'll give the final thoughts, concluding thoughts on all of that we've talked about tonight, as well as an opportunity to shout yourselves out. So we'll start with Sweetie Python.
Oh, okay. Big thank you to Gen Z. Keep up the good work. I don't care what happens in the next 10 years. You better keep showing up to vote. If you can do it once, you can do it again. And like I said, so proud of you. You're doing such a great job. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to grow that to make it better. Twitch TV/SweetiePython. Thank you for having me.
They will be linked in the description down below. Astrofeminist, closing thoughts and shout yourself out.
Yeah, kind of like what Sweetie said, just Gen Z did a really good job. And I think this is going to be I think this is going to set a precedent in future elections, that they showed out and the results were obvious and clear. And, we're going to be like, wow, this is a really strong and powerful demographic. And not only are they voting, but as we talked, they're already putting themselves in the House. So they are going to be like, this is lighting the firework, and they're just going to go off. And so I'm really excited. And I think we just have to keep in mind that a lot of the opposition is a lot older, and they're not going to be around forever. They are going to be around for, a handful of years. But I think that we're kind of hopefully in the tail end of the rough parts of it. In the next few decades, we'll kind of see some significant shifts in how just kind of our society is ran on a government level. I'm Astrofeminist. Check me out on TikTok, and have a good night.
A warming bout of optimism, which I will unfortunately douse like a cold bucket of water. Gen Z, we performed phenomenally this election. However, as we've talked with Moore v. Harper, nothing in the House, none of those races, even if we were to win all 19 remaining races, that doesn't change anything about Moore v. Harper. That doesn't make our democracy under any less of a threat, and that doesn't make Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump any less of a threat or any less powerful. We succeeded. We won. Pat yourself on the back. We did better than anyone thought we could, and we're going to have to keep doing that. We're going to have to keep fighting. We proved that we could, and now we're going to have to keep doing that. If you
finally got our foot in the door.
Yeah, we got our foot in the door. We kicked open that door. We're doing great. Not only should we keep voting, but also run for office, because even though running for office is difficult, expensive, exhausting, and logistically difficult, you will never find someone more committed to fighting for your ideals than yourself. Even in Republican-held districts, we saw Lauren Boebert supposed to win hers 97-3, stuck in a dead heat because we showed up and we decided to fight. These MAGA Republicans, as Lauren Boebert is demonstrating sort of symbolically for the entire party, They're not popular. They're weak candidates. They can be beaten. Even the average Republican voter, exit polls were showing you could have run a dead dog against Boebert and they would have voted for them. Lifelong Republicans were saying that. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's getting brutal out there. Republicans have been burning themselves out with performative cruelty. We've talked throughout this show about how they keep distancing themselves from various demographics instead of trying to win their vote. And they're, I said they're not going to lose any politicians, but their voter base is shrinking ever steadily. With that, we have the possibility of actually winning. We won in 2020 with putting Biden in the presidency. We've won to keep the Senate in our hands. The House, still coin flip. We'll see how that turns out. But we got some fight in there, and we did extraordinarily well. We're going to have to keep fighting. We're going to have to keep running for office. As I was paraphrasing from Frost in Florida. By the way, Gen Z, yeah, that man was running in Florida. Even though we won, we're going to have to keep winning. We're going to have to keep running. Because, as Frost said, we don't have time to gain 10 years of experience. We don't have time to go through their pathways. We have to get in, we have to fight, we have to be rabble-rousers, and we have to pull this country in the right direction, because with if Republicans gain power again, we're going to head into a nosedive. They are on the path of performative cruelty. They will, I don't think Ron DeSantis gives a shit about trans people personally, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the legislation he passes and advocates for, and that is cruel on unimaginable scales. Like taking away medical care from an entire community is a form of genocide. It is not your traditional form, but it is a form. It is engineering the deaths of many people. So take this win, sit back, and enjoy the night of victory. Then, tomorrow morning, get back up. Pick which Republicans you're going to kick ass with next. Be like, all right, you've had your seat for too long. I'm fighting you for it. Get organized and fight. And with that, that has been tonight's episode of Late Night Serotonin. Follow for more daily videos. Join us for the weekly live shows. Support us on Patreon. Join the Discord. And have a good evening.